Oh yeah, let's take a trip. Just sit back and light a spliff with this and don't slip on a funky dope track. Jump back, strapped with a fat Buddha sack and a 7/8 black on clean.
Creeps come to the Sting House with only one thing in mind: to get physical. Well, in these next couple of cases, that's exactly what happened, but not in the way they expect. And let me start off with this guy right here who had absolutely nothing to hide.
Hey, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know who I am.
Okay, let's get started with the very innocent-looking
Well, we all know
Raymond
who Chris
Anguano,
is.
whose intentions were the polar opposite of his plain look.
It's super good. It's what we do down south.
Well, this guy doesn't look
See,
harmless.
it took Raymundo just a little over
He doesn't
an
look
hour
harmful at
after
all.
getting into a conversation with a setup to hitch a ride to the Sting House. Well, once he had his mind set, I'm sure he never gave it a second thought. And don't even get me started about his chat log. They were downright disgusting. I mean, this dude had no filter at all. It was almost like he was spouting his thoughts for the world to hear the moment they came to his mind. And if that wasn't enough...
And sure enough, True Sweet Guy 69 sends her a picture of his genitals.
Yeah, Raymundo was that kind of guy, but somehow he assumed that the setup would drool all over him. Anyway,
Bruh.
Raymundo turned out to be quite reactive when it came to getting physical. And well, he didn't really want to waste any time whatsoever to get right into business. But before he could make himself
That's a
a
nice
little
truck,
too
bruh.
comfortable, Chris decided to pay the dude a visit.
How you doing? Why don't you have a seat right over there?
Raymundo was caught red-handed, and he
Oh, he
decided
shook his
to dish
hand.
out some of the lamest excuses I've had the
Crazy.
displeasure of hearing.
What are you doing here?
We were talking online, and
I mean, what even was that? Chris actually had to shelve his calm and cool persona there for a second and snap right back at him. That's how infuriating this guy was. And it wasn't just over the chat log. This dude was obsessed with talking no matter the medium. He was constantly running his mouth and just wouldn't shut up. And somewhere between all the garbage he was spouting, he blurted out something crucial.
And who were you talking online with?
with that young lady there, sir.
Yeah, one of the few rare times that someone caught in the sting actually accepted the truth. Turns out, he knew exactly how old the setup was and that she would be home alone. For just a moment, Raymundo came across like someone who was too naive to understand the gravity of what he got himself into. But well, leave it to Chris to drop some major truth bombs.
And you thought that was appropriate. Why?
Well, I don't know, sir. I mean,
Raymundo, however, was unbothered. I mean, seriously, how can someone be so obtuse? But guess what? This is where the lies came back in full force. But Chris wasn't having it. He decided to remind the prick of his nasty pictures he'd shared with the setup, and well, Raymundo decided to come clean.
yes, sir.
You did.
Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that.
Right.
Yes, he simply admitted to all of it with no hesitation whatsoever. Makes me wonder what exactly this guy was made of. Because clearly, his honesty wasn't about to win him any medal. In this case, it would land him in more trouble than he was already in. But the dude wasn't done yet.
You just get into these chat rooms and stuff, and you just.
Well, if you didn't, go out of your way
I mean,
to link up with
I
the
get it,
very wrong kind of people, maybe you wouldn't have found yourself in such a sticky situation. At this point, I can't even appreciate him for his honesty. But Chris wanted to get to the bottom of it. He decided to dig deeper and asked him a very straightforward question. What would have happened had he not intercepted him at the house? And Raymundo's reply was totally unexpected.
What was gonna happen was gonna happen. If nothing was gonna happen, then hey.
And that's how he confessed to a crime, all the while being taped live. Now, most of the
Well,
guys
I mean,
caught
it
in
wouldn't
the
do him no
Sting
good
House
to
have
lie.
no idea about the hidden cameras that lurk behind those curtains. But Raymundo seemed to know it all. The dude not only knew about the show, but was also quick enough to recognize Chris. Dude said it so casually that even Chris was shocked that someone could end up at the Sting House despite following the show so closely. Either way, Chris couldn't hold himself back anymore from this iconic reveal. And when the cameras rolled out, Raymundo had the most no-nonsense reaction to them.
If there's anything else you'd like to tell us,
No, that's it.
we'd like to hear it. Otherwise, you're obviously...
Wait, did I hear him say, I'm done? Yeah, you got it right, man. You sure are. Because once he stepped out of the house, to no one's surprise, Raymundo was thrown to the ground, handcuffed, and transported straight to the nearest interrogation center. And I'm pretty confident he stuck to his honest streak as soon as he was properly interrogated. Not like it earned him any extra
He looks like
brownie
he
points,
smells
but,
like
well, it's nice
beans.
to see a weirdo with this rare trait on the show.
Looks like he smell
Raymundo
like
was
beans.
eventually charged with 2 felony counts for crimes I'm sure you can expect. But for someone who was so frank throughout the confrontation with Chris, Raymundo ended up challenging
face
the
looks like
court to a
pizza.
trial. In the end, he came out a bigger loser than he went in, and ended up with a 25-year prison
Look at him.
sentence, paired
Look like
with
a
15
monkey.
years probation, and of course, a lifetime registration to everybody's favorite list. I mean, this bozo's story was one for the ages. Shocking, one might say, but this next one,
They put that man in a big old dog cage
totally different
police
kind
car.
of shock. Okay, everyone.
Oh,
Looks
my
like
lord.
we've got Todd West in the house. So this dude who didn't take much
He
time
looked
to
like a
show
meth
up
head.
came with a huge duffel bag in his hand. Well, I'm guessing he was planning on staying the night. Too bad he wouldn't be able to put any of it to use.
37-year-old Todd West has no problem following our decoy right into the house.
You see, Todd was all set for the setup. As soon as he arrived, the dude made himself so comfortable that he almost started to unpack his stuff. I mean, the level of confidence and comfort this guy had was pretty alarming. You see, this dude believed in giving pleasure. And guess what his game plan to entice the setup?
What
Well,
was it?
he shared a picture of himself. Well, getting pleasure. I'll let your imagination go wild here. Either way, it was a bold play. Now, I'm not sure if anybody would fall for that kind of stuff, but it wasn't his only trick.
So did he?
Nice digs.
Did you bring the Jack Daniels?
Yep.
You did?
Yeah, he actually thought it was okay to get wasted with a stranger. The setup, no less. And then get busy with the real stuff. And what's more, he seemed to be all too ready for action. But before the dude got way ahead of himself, Chris decided to stop the party. Now, I'm gonna cut the cheese out and head straight to his exit.
Oh my lord, that's some ear
And
rape
the
right
cops
there.
decided to rain down on him. Yep, Todd walked right into the arms of police officers who, unlike the setup, were more than happy to take him in. But Todd had a plan of his own.
After he's read his rights, 37-year-old West chooses to remain silent.
Can I have a water, pussy?
Turns out, Todd was all set to get married to a single mother who herself had 2 kids. I mean, the PJ crew managed to save 3 lives with 1 sting. No doubt his fiancée dodged a bullet with this one. Todd was swiftly taken away by the cops and finally landed a cool 10-year sentence with a minimum of 5 to serve. But here comes a dude whose arrest turns out to be quite the challenge.
Drives right up to the house and asks the decoy if it's all clear.
Now, meet Dwayne Chisholm, a real-life bodybuilder who was into some seriously messed up stuff. Now, if Dwayne's chats weren't enough, his sheer body size alone was more than enough to scare the
They're
hell
gonna
out
need
of anyone.
more than a couple
This
cops.
dude was huge, but his judgment was just as poor.
Hey. Good, how are you? I'm glad you can make it.
So Dwayne's excitement hit its peak when he landed a chick.
That's
who
a
was
good way
equally
for a young
interested in
kid to lose
engaging
her
with some
virginity.
questionable activities with him. But despite the setup informing
Oh,
him
she
about
fine,
her
oh, she
parents
fine,
being
she
home,
pretty.
Dwayne couldn't
pretty.
set aside his plans
I'll
for the
smash.
day. He offered to come over and pick her up. And before the setup could change her mind, the giant was on his way to the house. What's more, he actually asked her to just slip away from home so they could just go away somewhere far. But of course, there was a twist. Turns out, there was a change in plan. The setup's parents had stepped out for a movie night, and Dwayne couldn't be any more happier. As for the setup, she was terrified.
And I was honestly really scared because he was a bodybuilder. He could probably like grab me with his hand and squeeze the guts out of me.
Yeah, and she had every reason to be scared. I mean, it wouldn't take much for a man of his size to take her down. But Dwayne turned out to be a smart. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this.
You wanna come on over?
I want to talk a little first.
No problem.
Yeah, notice the tenderness in his voice, but pair that with his intentions, and the sweetness goes right out the window. Dwayne was trying his best to charm the setup. I mean, it was perfect. The beach, the night, the breeze. If only Dwayne had his way, this would be the best night forever. But sadly, the setup didn't comply. Instead, a well-suited man decided to
Are they
show
on the
up. All
beach?
Dwayne's hope for the night were dashed as Chris made his way onto the scene. And Chris put the same question to Dwayne as he did with Raimundo. What would have happened had he not been around? And Dwayne was absolutely unhinged.
I wouldn't want to say one thing or the other.
So you wouldn't rule out.
Although Dwayne tried to run away from the truth, Chris wasn't prepared to set him free. He decided to give him a quick reality check.
And that's why it's considered in many places statutory rape.
To me, Dwayne was just plain disappointed that he wasn't about to get any action. He wasn't bothered about the consequences as much as he should have ideally been. And yeah, he had a fair idea about the show as well. But did it bother him? Absolutely not.
So you kind of figured out what's going on.
I mean, you hear about it and
Yep, it was all a joke to him. But Chris had more than his fill by this point. When the cameras rolled out, Dwayne finally realized he was in it deep. But did he care?
wow. I mean,
It almost felt like he was enjoying all the attention. So much so that he had the nerve to ask Chris something ridiculous.
So, when do I get to see myself on TV?
I mean, just wow. How shameless can someone be? The dude
That's like
just wanted to
the
see
30th
himself
time
on
someone on the
television,
TV show.
that needs the job. Well, I guess I'll leave that to the cops. Yeah, taking down this creep wasn't an easy task, but, well, they got him anyway. Eventually, Dwayne got away with a minor sentence of just 6 months in jail, followed by a
6
year of
months?
probation and a lifetime registration as the offender. That's it. And oh, he also lost his job at the gym, but maybe that stung the most for him. Well, anyways, speaking of jobs, here comes one of the most
We done saw
unexpected
this
people
one.
to show up on the show, who held the most respectable job in society. I'm talking about
This one
Maurice
doesn't
Waller,
get physical
the
at
doctor
all.
gone rogue. You see, doctors of all stripes have quite a demanding job to do at the best of times. They are pretty much always moving this way and that way to try to help people, and Maurice was no different. But when it came to taking the day off, instead of spending it with his family, Maurice penned down a pretty sketchy appointment into his itinerary. And what's more, he was pushing way too hard to appear desirable.
Using the screen name Tall Dreamy Doc,
Maurice probably tried every trick in the book to make himself look appealing. I mean, how else do you explain his burning need to look at least 20 years younger than he really was? But well, this doc here was completely blinded by his fantasy, and despite being aware of the consequences, he just couldn't help himself from stepping right into the trap.
he tells her several times he could get into trouble.
So once Maurice showed up, he pretended to be the cool dude he never was. He started to pour himself a drink, but his jittery nerves got the better of him. Maurice ended up spilling the drink all over himself. How flattering. And well, he did the natural thing and headed straight to the back door to grab a towel. But what, or rather, who, did he find there?
He spots Dateline's camera crew.
I gotta take off.
Maurice went from fright to flight mode within seconds. Although Chris tried his best to catch up with him, Maurice was already well on his way out. But to his surprise, the cops were waiting to sweep him into their arms. But of course, Maurice wasn't having it. He probably saw his life and his career flash before his eyes. And what he did next was totally unexpected. Ah, the frustration was real, but hey, that's something you brought on yourself. Meanwhile, the cops showed him no mercy. They handled him with the same care he handled his sunglasses with. But Maurice was prepared to throw an act of his own.
Oh man, I wasn't doing anything. Get his keys.
Yep, he started bawling his eyes out. I mean, bro, not sure how that's gonna land you a better sentence, but anyway, the cops weren't fooled. But Maurice wouldn't stop trying.
I'm in big trouble, and I feel like I made maybe a mistake, but I didn't do anything.
You did make
In
a
the end,
mistake,
despite
boy.
the truth staring at him in the
What you
face,
talking about? You
Maurice
did do
decided to
something,
play
nigga.
the
Tripping.
ignorance card. He continued to claim that he hadn't done anything wrong and that he only came over to say hi. But well, none of it mattered anymore. The damage was already done. Now, if you thought Maurice was acting up, just wait till you see what this next dude planned on doing. Okay, so when it comes to being paranoid, this dude right here literally puts everybody else to shame.
As it did when one of our visitors arrived in his truck.
Maurice Majube wasn't someone who'd be easily fooled, or so he thought.
I think I saw
Right
this
from
one
the
too.
start, the dude had his suspicions about the setup. After giving it lots of thought, he finally arrived at location, but refused to get out of his car. Turns out he was looking for some kind of sign from the setup to signal him in. But that's when something really unexpected happened.
Mejub suddenly hears a walkie-talkie in the background.
What?
Yep, there was a small communication error from the team side, and the walkie-talkie started to give off a little bit of feedback. And Quaze got spooked. He headed straight to his car and drove away. But guess what? Desperation got the better of him, and he circled right back into the same trap a few moments later. I mean, talk about a major lapse in judgment.
But he circles around and comes in anyway.
And just like that, Quay found himself back at the house, knocking at the doors of what would be the end of his carefree life.
What
Quay's
an
made his
idiot.
way in, despite everything, and asked for a little tour of the house. Well, looks like the hot tub idea that the setup floated across him was way too irresistible to miss. But Chris decided to put an end to his excitement. And the next thing you know, Quay's decided to run for it.
Hey, Matt, how are you? Now, Matt, I need to talk to you for a minute. Matt, why don't you have a seat right over there?
However, this time, there was no escaping the long arms of the law. Quays didn't have any time to process what was happening and was left completely shell-shocked.
Hands up! Hands up! Put your hands up! Tommy.
Dude kind of froze in place. Oh well, cue the silence before the storm. And well, that's how you put an end to an extremely twisted story.
Get on the ground.
Yep, true. A satisfying arrest. So, do you think I missed your favorite moment? Let me know in the comments down below, or leave me a message on any of my social media pages. And if you find this video interesting, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications.
man.
And you better check out this next video right
Yeah,
here.
see,
It's
I
even
really don't
crazier.
get it because he said the most physical. If that's the most physical that like that gets, that's pretty bad because that really wasn't much. But you know, it was still a good video to watch. You know, I got to see the thing again. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.